All right, let's just jump right into this. Because what we're about to talk about is maybe one of the most unbelievable, just wild economic experiments a major country has ever tried. We're talking about France, and a plan that basically took the entire economic rulebook and just tossed it out the window.
And really, it all comes down to this one single question. And it's a big one. Could you actually save an economy by throwing a giant nationwide party? I know, it sounds completely nuts, but France, well, they actually decided to find out. So you have to be asking, where does an idea this radical even come from? I mean, who thinks of this stuff? Well, to get it, we need to look at the exact moment that lit the fuse on France's wild economic bet.
See, this wasn't just some random idea cooked up overnight. The whole thing was a direct and pretty aggressive response to international economic pressure, specifically the tariffs coming from the US at the time. But instead of fighting back in a normal way, France decided to do, well, this. And what's kind of amazing is they didn't even try to hide it. This quote from their own Ministry of Finance says it all. This wasn't just about spreadsheets and economic theory. Oh no, this was about pride. It was a defiant move, meant to be seen by the whole world.
Okay, so the motivation was pure defiance. Got it. But what did the plan actually look like on the ground? This is where we get into the details. And folks, the details are something else.
So here's the core idea, the whole philosophy behind it. Forget about boring old tax rebates. The plan was to take things that are usually just for the rich, luxury, leisure, total indulgence, and make them available to every single citizen. The hope was that if you let everyone live the high life, they'd start spending like crazy and jumpstart the whole economy.
And they took this idea to an absolutely incredible extreme. First, boom, no more taxes on classic luxuries like alcohol, cigars, and oysters. Then, and I'm not making this up, they legalized and even subsidized cocaine. And to top it all off, they made it mandatory for every city and town with more than 5,000 people to throw a weekly party complete with free food, an open bar, and dancers. I mean, wow.
So, what was the government's official line? Well, according to the, actual Ministry of Fun, this was all about quality of life. The thinking went that if people were happier, well-fed and entertained, they'd be more productive, and more importantly, they'd be out there spending money.
Now, you can't just drop a policy like this on a country and expect everyone to agree. The reaction was intense. So let's look at how the French people themselves handled this wild new reality.
And the public was, to put it mildly, split right down the middle. On one side, you had people who were just ecstatic, saying things like, finally, we can all live like aristocrats. They felt like the government was actually listening. But on the other side, total concern. People were worried it was a recipe for disaster and were asking, is this really the message we want to send our kids? The country was completely torn.
So, you've got a divided country and a watching world. What happened next? Well, what happened was an economic explosion. Let's dig into the absolutely mind-blowing numbers of the tourism boom. 576%. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the insane increase in tourism that France saw right after these policies went into effect. It's a number that barely seems real. So what does a 576% jump actually look like in the real world? It looks like the city of Paris being totally sold out. No hotel rooms. Not for a week, not for a month. We're talking for almost 7 months straight, from spring all the way to late fall. And word got out fast. This thing went global. The attraction was just magnetic. I mean, this quote from a tourist says it all. I came all the way from Australia. People weren't just popping over from next door. They were flying halfway across the planet to get in on the action.
But here's the thing about that kind of runaway success. It creates a whole new set of massive problems. Which brings us to our last section, where we have to ask, was it paradise? Or was it just pandemonium? Basically, the country started to buckle under the weight of its own success. Hotels, restaurants, they were completely swamped. They just couldn't keep up. Public services were strained to the breaking point. And with all the tourists and other stuff, reports of rowdy behavior and public intoxication went through the roof. And the government's response? Not to pull back. Oh no. Their plan was to build more party infrastructure.
And honestly, this quote from a police officer in Paris just perfectly captures the vibe. You can feel the chaos in his words, right? He's admitting there are problems, but there's also this sense of, what can you do? It feels like this thing has just gotten too big for anyone to stop.
So that leaves us here with the ultimate question.
Was this a brilliant, bold vision for a new kind of economy, one built on happiness and having a good time? Or was it just a reckless, short-sighted recipe for total disaster? The party in France is still raging, and only time will tell what the hangover is going to look like.